Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jerso and today's video is my February wrap up. I have my coffee. It's pretty early in the morning, so I'm hoping words kind of just flow to me, you know what I mean. I'm just gonna jump right in. So in the month of February, I was able to read 10 books. I got into the mood of novellas, which literally have not read any up until this point, but I was just in the mood for smutty novellas, so that's like what I read alongside with some other books here. But I figured I would just talk about the novellas first and then move into the longer books a little later. So I decided to not rate the like shorter novellas because it's like, it was just smut. It was what I was in the mood for. There was like, I'm not gonna give it a star rating. So anyways, the first novella I'm going to be talking about is Catch Me If You Can by Christina C. Jones. This is probably one of my least favorite novellas that I read this month or last month. I think it was about a girl who is a nurse and she has a lot on her plate, and she just got out of a bad relationship and she meets this like real estate agent. Well, she meets this guy at a coffee shop and they have a one-night stand, and he's like, oh, he likes her right away, but she's just like, this can only be a one-night stand type of thing, like we're never going to see each other again. And circumstance after circumstance they see each other again, but it's not really under the circumstances that he would want. I think that's the best I can do this book. It was interesting. I think my main problem with this and why I didn't like it as much as the other novellas was the main character, or the main woman character. I just felt like sis was popping off for everything. Like, she didn't give my guy a chance to breathe, like to explain himself. She would see him and it was an automatic pop off, and I was like, 0 to 100 for what? For why? I mean, like, I got it, some of them, but it's like, sister, who has the energy? Who has the energy? So that was that one. The next one I'm going to talk about is 8 by Rosie Adams. This one is about a woman who gets a big promotion at a job. So she invites her best friend over and they hire like a professional chef to like celebrate her promotion or like her big job accomplishment, and her friend ends up canceling on her, so she ends up spending the night alone with this personal chef, and there's instant attraction, and that's all I can say because it's really short. But this delivered with the smut. There was so much. It was really good, but my thing was I didn't feel the connection between the characters enough to like really get into the smut, you know? Like, the smut was the majority of the book, but I just didn't feel connected enough with the characters to care. And then I read Fans Only by B Love. This one was about two kind of frenemies who both need money for different things, so they decide to start a fans only account with each other. This was fun. The main characters were, I would say they're compatible, and I mean the smut scenes were okay. I really don't know how to talk about this book. It was fine. It was what I wanted to read at the time. So if that sounds interesting to you, pick it up. Next, I'm going to talk about Go Deep. I think this was also by Rosie Adams, and I think I read this one first before I read 8. And Go Deep was amazing. We love her. Fantastic. I absolutely love this novella. In this we follow a erotic romance writer, and she's kind of losing her mojo. Her book reviews aren't doing that great, and she thinks it's because she hasn't been getting any play in a little bit. So she and her best guy friend make this kind of like deal, understanding type thing, that they would be friends with benefits until she, you know, gets her mojo back and she starts writing good sex scenes again. And it's about their romance from friends to lovers, and it was just so cute. I thought these two characters were so in sync with each other. I felt the chemistry right away, even when they were just friends. Like, the chemistry was there, and I feel like Rosie Adams did a really good job at fitting the chemistry and the plot and like the smutty scenes. I feel like she did it excellently. It was so good. I absolutely love this one. And then the last two I read are part of a series. So the first one was Raph, and then the second one was Zeni, both by Rebecca Weatherspoon. And these two, Raph was my absolute favorite read. In Raph, we follow a doctor whose live-in nanny has just ran out on her. So, and she has two kids, so she like needs a nanny, and she gets a recommendation for a male live-in nanny, Raph, and he takes the position because he just doesn't know what else he's going to do next in life, and that's his whole other story. But so he starts becoming a nanny to the two twins. And did I say the woman's name? Her name is Sloane. Yes. So he becomes Sloane's nanny, and they kind of attract to each other or whatever, you know, and things start heating up. And I loved this book so much. I have a vlog where I talk about it, and just, it makes me so happy. I honestly feel like I need to reread it already. But amazing, great, 5 out of 5 stars. Even though I said I wasn't rating novellas, this one 5 out of 5 stars. I would recommend this one. So good. And then in Zeni, we follow one of the side characters in the first book, obviously, but her name is Zeni. She is a teacher, and her aunt just died, and she's kind of in charge of everything regarding the funeral and stuff. And so at her aunt's will reading, she finds out some family secrets, and she also finds out that she's been left this huge inheritance, but she can only have access to it if she marries the guy that her aunt has mentioned in her will. So they decide to get married so they can have access to this money. And this book wasn't like, it wasn't what I was expecting. It was a lot heavier than I thought it would be. So definitely look at the content warnings before you read this one. But I really liked it. Even though it was still heavy, it was still, there was still laughter and banter between the two main characters that I loved. But overall, I did really enjoy that one too. It was nice. And those were the novellas that I read this month. So the last 4 books that I have to talk about, I've read physically. So the first book we have is Legendborn by Tracy Dion. I've been wanting to read this since last year, and I literally made it my mission to read it in February, and I did. So in this book, we follow Brit Matthews, who is a 16-year-old black girl who is dealing with the sudden death of her mom. I think her mom was involved in like a hit and run accident type thing. So she's dealing with that, but she has also been accepted into an early college program. at UNC Chapel Hill, so she is able to move on campus with her best friend and attend college classes and stuff like that. And on one of her first nights on campus, she goes to a party of sorts and she witnesses a monster attack, and she sees people who kind of try to wipe her memory of the attack, but it doesn't work, and she gets immersed or introduced to the world of the Legendborn, which are a secret society on campus that's responsible for keeping the kids safe at UNC Chapel Hill from these monster attacks. And this is a loosely based King Arthur retelling as well. So that's basically the entire plot is Brit infiltrating the Legendborn because she feels like they have a connection somehow, or they know something about her mother's death somehow. I just did a really bad job at explaining that, but you get the gist. So this one I ended up, I think I did 4.5 on Goodreads. I really enjoyed this book. It was so good. Like, it was just a great YA fantasy book. One of my favorite things about this book is how Tracy Dion was able to weave in so many conversations and topics of grief and racism, just how Brit was handling the death of her mom, and how she was also struggling with being in white spaces and being clearly different from everyone else. The conversations in this was interesting, and I loved how it weaved in with the fantasy plotline, and how even like everything down to the magic system connected to Black people not knowing their history, or not being able to track their history as easily because we weren't allowed to write down our history. It was like just word of mouth. I will say I did not know anything about King Arthur at all, so that kind of hindered my enjoyment just like a tiny bit, because I just had to work out what role this person played and how that was connected to anything in this book. But I did really enjoy it, and I can understand 100% why everybody loves it so much. The next book I ended up reading was The Vanishing Half by Bennett. This again was another one that I was hoping to get to last year, but I just didn't have the time. In this book, we follow two twin sisters, Delilah? Hold on. Desiree. Wow. So we follow two main characters, Desiree and Stella, and both these girls are, did I say they were twins already? I think I did. It's early, I'm sorry. We follow two twins, and these two grew up in a town that's very interesting. This town is full of mixed race individuals, and they are white passing, and especially Desiree and Stella are like extremely white passing twins, and they want to leave this town because they just feel suffocated by it. Though they make their escape and they leave the town, and then the story starts where one of the twins come back. This book is basically the lives of the twins after they split up. Don't know why they split up. We don't know what happened to make them go their separate ways. We basically learn that Desiree married a dark-skinned Black man and her daughter turned out Black. But Stella has lived her life as a white woman, and it's basically how their lives turned out, how the decisions they made affected their daughters, and how it affects how the town kind of affected their thinking and how they grew up and how they see dark skin and see other people. This one I ended up giving 3.5 stars. I wanted to like this book a lot more than I did, but it was just missing so much for me. But first, I loved the concept of this book. The concept of this book actually blew my mind, because after hearing everybody talk, I thought I went in knowing what I needed to know about this book, and I didn't. The concept of the town in itself was just really weird to me, but super intriguing. The conversation points about colorism in the Black community and what's seen as beauty and prestige, I felt like that was excellently done. I also felt that Bennett didn't give us any dry characters. I feel like the main characters in this book and even the side characters held an important point, they embodied a particular characteristic that we would see in the real world, and just how their stories influence the two main characters and everything like that. And I just thought like that was so great. I just felt like the story lacked something for me, and I think it was because it just felt, I kept waiting for something to happen and nothing really happened to the scale that I would want it to. Like, there were certain points I was like, oh shoot, like dang, what's gonna happen now? But they were quick, and I just felt like the book just ended. Like, it was just like out of nowhere, the story is over. And I was so confused. I was so confused. But that's kind of why I didn't enjoy this book as much as I thought I would, but I do recommend it. The next book I ended up picking up was We're Going to Need More Wine by Gabrielle Union. This was my nonfiction pick for February, and I'm doing great at my nonfiction goal because I read one in January, one in February, and I'm gonna read one this month. But anyways, just wanted to shout myself out there. But this one is a memoir of sorts. It's just stories from Gabrielle Union's childhood, how she grew up. Do look at the content warnings for this one. I know there's talk of gang violence, a little bit of drug use and abuse, rape, sexual assault. Yeah, so just look at the content warnings for these stories. I also don't rate nonfiction, so this one was pretty good. I felt like the stories were very interesting. They were funny. I listened to the audio of this one, and Gabrielle Union narrates the audio, and it just felt like sitting down and talking with like a friend, or like catching up with a friend. I was like laughing at some parts, and it just it felt nice. It felt like sitting with a friend. I do wish the stories in this book were more chronological. It would just make it easier in my brain to remember characters in the story, and just like I would be listening to a story like towards like the middle end of the book, and I was like, wait, I know this name. She's told a story with this person before. And it's like one of like the way earlier stories, and I just wish it was more like childhood, middle adulthood than like her now type of thing. So that's the only problem I had with this book. Otherwise, I felt like it was a great read, and I would recommend it as well. The last book I ended up reading this month was A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. If you do not know what this book is about, you could be living underneath a rock, but there's no judgments here. This is the, I guess you can consider it the 5th book within the Court of Thorns and Roses series. In the core series, which we have a Court of Thorns and Roses, Court of Mist and Fury, and Court of Wings and Ruin, and then Court of Frost and Starlight, which is a novella which I do not own. In the first chunk of series here, we follow Feyre, who is a human, and in this world the human and the Fey world are kind of divided by like this huge wall. So Feyre is poor and she's kind of looking for food for her family, so she goes out to hunt and she accidentally kills a Fey wolf, and then we have a Fey prince come in and was into the human world and was like, you killed someone of my court, so you have to come with me. And so he sweeps her away and she goes into the Fey world, and we find out a whole lot happens. Okay, the Fey world is a mess. It is messy, and our good sis Feyre is there to save them all, basically. So that is the first 3 books. And so this one, Sarah J. Maas decided to do a continuation of the series, but it is, from what I understand, it's going to be, each book of this new part of the series is going to follow a different character but have an overarching plot, and that is important for my review of this book because we have some things to say. Okay, so in this book we follow Nesta, who is Feyre's sister, and in the first series some things happen to Nesta. She's going through some changes and she's basically a bitter, angry person going through PTSD in this book, and it is her love story with one of the other main characters in the series, Cassian, and also a continuation of the whole political aspect and warfare that happened within the first 3 books and how that's continuing and everything like that. So I'm debating on doing a full-on review for this book. Let me know if you guys would want one, like its own separate video. This was not what I was expecting. Going in, I didn't like Nesta anyways. I felt that she was insufferable. Like, she took being angry to new levels. Okay, she just took it to new levels. So I was a little hesitant going in here, but I knew I loved Cassian. Cassian was that guy for me. I loved his humor and just how he handles situations. Just, I love him. So I ended up giving this book 4 stars. Not my favorite book, so I was very disappointed with this book, and I think my disappointment comes up to the fact that usually with the Sarah J. Maas book you have a romance plotline and you have a fantasy plotline, and they're all in the same book, and she balances it so well. But because of what she's doing with the series, I think, of focusing one book on a character but an overarching fantasy plot, I guess I'm just not used to it, and I wish there was more plot. I wish we got more of what was going on in the world, because these people are always scheming and moving mad weird in this book. Okay, like, you never know what someone's really planning. You never know if they're really on your side, and I needed that in this book. I needed the political scheming, but I also needed the smut and the romance, and she delivered on that part. Delivered. The smut, the connection between Cassian and Nesta, amazing. I loved it. I just wanted more of that scheming. I wanted more of the political intrigue, and for a majority of this book, I just kept getting annoyed because I felt like Nesta would take 2 steps forward and then like a quadrillion steps back. Like, she would be, okay, I'm getting better, and then it would be like sis would just say some off the wall shit. Like, she would do and say some out of pocket shit, and I was just like, there was no need for that. Like, these people didn't do this to you, sweetie. They're helping you. And I was so conflicted with this book because while first of all, it's heavy. This book is heavy. I wasn't expecting that. Nesta is traumatized. Okay, she's traumatized. She is suffering, and you get to experience that. Like, this, you get to experience her suffering, and it was just hard to read at some points because it's like I was saying, she was making progress and then suddenly she would just like reel back. And I get that it is an accurate representation of healing, and just like how the healing process isn't very linear. It's not like happy. It takes a lot of hard work, but oh baby, this was rough. So that was kind of where my disconnect happened. I will say that we are introduced to some awesome female side characters in this book. Gwen and Emery, I love y'all. Y'all are great. But yeah, there were some happy moments in this book. The smut was there, the romance was there. It was just, I guess, like Nesta as a character, and just not getting the political intrigue that we usually get with a Maas book. I think that's why my rating of this was a little lower, and I was a little disappointed by what we got. But I'm still really excited for the rest of the series, only because I know that the political intrigue is picking up, and I'm excited to see what she does with it. So those are all the books that I ended up reading in February. Let me know what you guys ended up reading. Did you read some good books? Have you read any of the books that I have, or do any of them seem interesting to you? Please let me know. I love chatting books down in the comments, and my Instagram and Goodreads are always linked down in the description below. So if you would like to follow me, go ahead, and I'll see you guys in a new video soon. Bye.